Hello, welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Freemasonry, lodges all over the world. Apparently, according to one book I've been going over, and many others. Secret societies, subversive movements, Nestor Webster, Series 70 in my series. I'll be making another video on this book right away. But apparently, back in the 1700s, the Illuminati, apparently a satanic group, witchcraft type of organization. Get it? Illumed? Something to do with mysticism? I'm learning a lot about this, and we talk about Jewish mysticism, Jewish Kabbalah, and all the mysterious symbols and satanic rituals on Emmys, Grammys, Super Bowl halftime shows, the Olympic openings, tunnel opening ceremonies over in Switzerland, CERN, the Collider ceremony. The goddess of destruction, Shiva, on the Empire State Building, a gigantic projection. Conchita Wurst winning the American Eurovision contest, which like American Idol contest, with the name Conchita Wurst, a face like Jesus, and a body in a silky dress, singing the song, The Phoenix Rising, with the words, "You can't stop us." Wurst means sausage. Cheetah means a female part. Gigantic goat on the Hoover Dam. Goat is a symbol for the devil, Baal, whatever. And so much more. TV programming. So we do seem to have some forces from the spiritual realm interfacing with the material realm, the human realm, and the Illuminati, mysticism, Kabbalah, witchcraft, the ancient science of the pyramids and the Sphinx, the stuff on the hieroglyphics. Stuff goes way back. So anyways, I was going to fill another hole in my missing holes in my series, 1 through 149 so far. But when I consolidated a couple books into one series, because they were related, I had a few empty spaces. And I had read books back then that I haven't made videos on. So to complete the series, I'm going to do a book review on this psychic warrior. So this will be series number 10. And I did one on Tim Rifat, who was a remote viewer, and Jim Mars on remote viewing. So if the governments can put people in trances, and they can leave their body, go into the future, go into the past, go over to Russia, go to China, go to the moon even, I think it might explain a lot of what we're dealing with this new age and new world order, and apparently some demonic satanic forces wanting to bring us a new world order that is not friendly towards we the people. As a matter of fact, if you've seen the movie Hunger Games or Divergent, you probably have a good idea what they're planning on bringing us. Mad Max, and so many other movies out there, TV programming, TV series. And so more of the occult and mysticism. Look in the symbol, the picture on this book with the devil with the star, the Freemasonic symbols by William Shinobium, who used to be a practicing witch and a Mason, and turned away from these things and wrote this book. Series number 117. So I made a video on this book. You can go watch. So I think with my series, if you go watch my videos and try to take some notes, you'll be able to get a a snapshot in your mind of what we're talking about, what's really going on in the world. The raw material, I've been going over the different channelers out there that are popular and the entities they channel. This was series 122. I've already made a video or two, and I'll be making more videos on all these books when I go back through the whole series and do a full year review for my 150 series milestone ceremony, whatever you want to call it, anniversary review. Notice the Egyptian hieroglyphics here. Even the Ankh with the T with the circle on top. The T means divine, circle on top, and you see a lot of these symbols. It actually looks like a snake. That's a snake, the circle. T means divine, so that would be divine serpent. Get it? And even on Jacques Vallée, Messengers of Deception, series 121, I made a couple videos on this book. He appears to agree with me that that everything's connected. We're talking about one thing when we're talking about witchcraft. We're talking about Illuminati. We're talking about reptilian beings, gray aliens, mysticism, the Kabbalah, and all this magic, other dimension, invisible reality stuff. It appears to all be connected. And I think I'm getting closer and closer to proving that. And I've been reading from this book. I just made a video. Been reading more material in it. But let me read from this book so you can get a sample and be informed a little bit about psychic abilities and psychic training, which I think would interest anybody. Kind of a fascinating discussion. And I have a little bit of accumulated knowledge in my many years of research, almost 13 years, into this stuff. So I'll make some comments as we go along. And I would probably assume anybody watching that video will come away with more than they knew than before they started watching this particular video. And I do have a list of all my videos on rickmiracle.com. On the top left-hand side, you can cut and paste yourself a list onto a Word document. So you can use a little cheat sheet and go find and watch the videos you want. You can just watch the videos I make on psychic research, or the ones on the conspiracy proof. I don't even like to call it conspiracy theories, because as a lot of other investigators have said, you really can't call it a theory. The whole thing does exist. There is a conspiracy to bring about this new paradigm, this new age, this new world order. And it also, and I know people don't want to hear this, but it appears to match what we were taught as Christians. And I believe a lot of the other religions teach some of the similar prophecies and have similar commandments for human behavior and have evil entities just like the Christian religion does or the Islamic religion does. Remember, the Arabs have something called a jinn or a genie. And in Christianity, of course, we got angels or demons or Nephilim. A lot of people interpret that to be watchers or masters or archons. And the Jewish religion and all the Theophist society, the New Age, pixies and Palladians and all kinds of other entities out there. So getting into the mind of a psychic warrior, somebody who's trained by the government to leave their body, are you interested in what they do and what they see? I'll get started reading from the book. All right. David Morehouse, ex-military man, what you call a grunt, troop, parachuter, a soldier. But he got wounded, and then he was recruited into this program. So page 106. I'm going to take off at 106, so I'm leaving out a lot. But I think we can glide right into this, and you can pick it up where you can understand it. Remember, he was a soldier. He got wounded. and he was recouping, and they decided to recruit him into the Psychic Warrior program. If you want to read all the details, go buy the book. I'm not trying to do an audiobook. I read a few pages, have a discussion, and I believe we can all agree on a little bit of a conversation afterwards that apparently remote viewing does exist, and these are some of the tools that are the same tools in other psychic research that are used to do this, which I believe are some of the tools and things that people into witchcraft, voodoo, the Illuminati, sacrificing humans, mysticism, the Kabbalah, etc., etc. So that's what I'm driving at. I want to find out what this stuff is. What are we fighting? What are we up against, really? All right, we walked over to the other building, and Mel put the electrodes on my head. So he went into this building where the remote viewers sit in a chair, like a barber chair or an airplane seat. And they get some electrodes hooked to their heads. We've seen enough movies, most of us. We can figure out what that would look like. He took me to the CRV room, controlled remote viewing, and wired me into the monitor board. I'll be in the monitor room with Kathleen after Kathleen arrives, and he says, "How are you feeling? Nervous?" So can you imagine if you went to some lectures and learned a little bit about this and you were going to take your first spin at going into a trance and leaving your body? All right, so David Morehouse says, nervous as hell. Page 106. Kathleen arrived 10 minutes before the start of the session. I'm going to let you cool down for about 10 minutes before I come back in. I'll be in the monitor room with Mel. If you need me, just ring the call button. Any questions? No, I don't think so. At least not right now. Good. Go ahead and cool down. I'll be back in a few minutes. Oh, and good luck. You'll do fine. So one of the things I do know about psychic abilities is there are several frequencies we operate at. Between 13 and 30 hertz cycles per second is our awake state. So I guess if you were really agitated and excited, you could even go above 30 hertz, 40 hertz. So this normal waking state is between 17 and 30 or 13 and 30. And then when you go down from 13 to 8, that's when you're relaxed. You're getting ready to doze off. And when you go down from 8 to 4, you're really relaxed. Your eyes are closed and you're just about to go to sleep, but you can still hear things. You're not quite asleep. But then when you go down from 3 to almost 0, you are asleep. And that means the left side of your brain is shut down. But we have two lobes of our brain. One is the conscious brain, one is the subconscious brain. So when you shut down the conscious brain, the subconscious brain takes over. That's when you're dreaming. And if you can learn to try to be aware and control what you do when you're sleeping, you can do what you call projecting. And you can project yourself out of your body and look around the room. People have a lot of these situations by accident. They get in an accident and they die, but then they get brought back to life. That's after death experiences. And some people just get fatigued or depressed or on drugs, and they have these out-of-body experiences. And I've had one of those. I've described it on previous videos. And you wake up and you can see yourself lying there. And it's quite interesting because you are quite alert. But then if you want to go anywhere, you have to think about where you want to go and just will yourself, and boom, you start flying through space. But like most people, I did what most people did. if it's your first time, you usually panic and you go, oh my God, did I die? And you go, I don't want to die. And you come back to your body, you all of a sudden the eyes pop open and you're laying there. And then you sit up and you go, was that real? But if you examine the evidence like I did, it was very much real. And I started telling some of my friends about the experience. And some of my friends told me about their experiences. So I guess unless somebody brings it up, most of us don't talk about it. But what is interesting about, let's say, children, when they die in the hospital, when they're having surgery or whatever, and they are brought back to life, they talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, the relatives that they meet that tell them it's not their time, that they got to go back. Relatives that have been dead before they were even born, when they describe them to their parents. And this is a common occurrence. There are many books out there. I've got the books. We'll go over them. I think I've gone over some of the books on this material. So just trying to fill in the blanks here. So let me speed right along here. So they want them to cool down, and that means lower your frequency. And they have electronic biofeedback devices they can hook you up to, like a monitor that goes beep, 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 and you can learn to just relax. And so it goes beep, beep, and you can actually slow your mind down. Relax. And then the other right-hand brain can take over. And that enables the psychic ability. So like I said, part of this is my research into Freemasonry and Satanism. I'm just trying to understand more about the occult. What do the powers that be know that we don't know? And we know they're into mind control to the 100th degree. They've been working on mind controlling humans and bringing about this new age and new world order. There's a lot of horrible stuff out there, even with the 5G network that's coming out. You know, when you get an antenna on your house for the old TVs, those antennas were about this big because that was the frequency wavelength. Then when they came out with dish TV, satellite TV, the dishes were about this big because that was the length of one wave, frequency, megahertz, gigahertz. Now they're coming out with 5G. It's a little tiny frequency matching the wavelength of the cells in your body. If you know anything about electronics, oh my. They could, because what happens, whatever the size is that the frequencies run into, and that's why microwave dish antennas are this big, if it's the exact frequency, it'll resonate and it'll stay there, just like putting food in a microwave. But if it's an off frequency, it'll have half of a frequency and then it'll reflect back and wave back, and they'll keep canceling each other out. So -1 plus +1 equals 0. So it can't create any heat. It has to be the exact size of the wave to create heat. And if they're giving us the 5G network, which they seem intently determined to install all over the world, and even passing legislation with no public input allowed. I've showed that document. You can look it up. Just look up 5G network in Australia, and you'll find a lot of alarming news about it. All right, I listened to one of the focus tapes. So he was taking classes preparing for this little experiment, and one of the things they have are focus tapes to try to help you bring down your aware frequency to get in a subliminal state. I've been given to help me relax. The tape carried both audible and subliminal messages. Certain tonal frequencies on it were specifically designed to help merge the brain waves of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This helped the viewer to achieve an altered state. As I was cooling down, I could hear the tones in my biofeedback mechanism sounding the current wavelength of my brain. The target was theta waves. I was now functioning on beta, so he's going down on his frequencies, And right here to where my finger is here, this is an oscilloscope, and I can turn it on. As you can see the screen there, and I can put the probe on my finger, and maybe you can see the signal. See the signal? Touch it to my skin. So I could use that for biofeedback. I could calibrate it and try to get my heart rate down and my brain waves down. And I have other electronic devices. I am into serious psychic research. This is something I guess a lot of us are interested in. Little did I know it was part of the stuff that is involved in voodoo or witchcraft or the occult or the Illuminati or sacrificing human beings and all other kinds of satanic rituals, reaching different kinds of frequencies or thought forms. I'm just trying to understand these people who control our world, who are seriously into this stuff. They have all kinds of black operational projects going on out there, specifically targeting we the people on how to control us. And pretty soon they're going to want to microchip everybody. It's already unfolding. Facial recognition, cell phone towers, cell phones, iPads, wireless systems, smart meters, smart everything else. Just might behoove us to pay attention to some of this stuff. So now he was functioning in beta, so he slowed down to probably 3 to 7 hertz. So he's pretty relaxed. He's not out yet, but he's getting there. I thought, I've been in here 10 minutes and I'm already screwed up. I fumbled with the adjustment handle for a moment, setting the chair in the position I thought I wanted, but as I squirmed in it, I concluded I didn't like it. I exclaimed, "Is this how you want the chair?" Kathleen asked. "I don't know. I want the darn thing lying back, sitting up straight." So he was having trouble getting comfortable in the chair. Remember, I'm reading somebody else's writing. Sometimes that can be a little confusing. So he says, "What should I do?" And Kathleen laughed. "Just make it comfortable. Make it high enough for that your arms can rest lightly on the table. That will help you with your ideogram." So when he goes into a trance, he has a pen in his hand. And under the pen is a piece of paper. He's going into a trance. And when he sees things, he tries to automatically draw pictures of what he sees. Ideogram. As I fumbled with the chair, Kathleen placed a stack of white paper near me. She pulled one sheet off and carefully centered it directly in front of me. I dimmed the lights slightly. As Mel had explained, I would be giving a set of coordinates, random numbers assigned to a target. When I received the numbers, I would write them down as they were given, and after I had written down the numbers, my hand would produce what we call an ideogram. An ideogram was nothing more than an autonomic response to the target in the matrix. In other words, the ideogram came from the unconscious mind and was somehow descriptive of the target. How this worked was all part of Riley's lengthy and cumbersome lectures. So apparently, before you go somewhere when you leave your body, of course you have to think about it before you can project to it. So they have these envelopes with serial numbers on them or any kind of number, identification number. And inside the envelope is the destination. Maybe it's the Eiffel Tower in Italy, excuse me. And so you're relaxing and you would draw something looking like the Eiffel Tower before you actually project yourself to go there and describe what's going on there. Whenever you're ready, Kathleen said. How will I know when I'm ready? I mean, I feel really not ready now. You'll know when you are ready, when you feel a peacefulness and a warmth come over you. I pre-read all this the last 2 days. When you feel that, place the tip of your pen on the paper, and I'll read the coordinates to you. Got that? David Morehouse says, I got it, thanks. I tried to count down in my head, as I had been taught. So part of hypnotism, which I've studied that, when you want to hypnotize somebody else, controlling, very monotone type of voice, you tell a person to relax. You are going to sleep. When I count down from 5 to 1, when I get to 1, you go to sleep. And then you count 5 or whatever. And you do that slowly and say, rest and go to sleep. And you count down 5, 4, 3 again and again and again. Until all of a sudden you see the person's eyes start fluttering. And you know they're in a controlled trance. So this is a kind of a way of self-inducing a trance. All right, I closed my eyes and relaxed. The audible tones of the biofeedback machine sounded, just like you saw the thing on my oscilloscope here, my meter. They have tones you can hear. Changing to alpha waves. They were slowing down, slower, slower, slower. Finally, a flat tone indicating theta waves. Within seconds, I felt as if I had no arms, no legs, and it was a centered and peaceful feeling. We all know how it feels when you nod off. I was aware of nothing in the room, only Kathleen's breathing. I heard her heart beating and the blood coursing through her veins. So when you enter the ether, even somebody's heart next to you beating sounds like drums. Boom, boom, boom. Just giving you some idea of what it's like to be in the ether, out of your body. My head dropped forward and my hand slowly lowered the tip of the pen to the paper. As soon as it touched, Kathleen announced my first set of coordinates. I repeated them to her as I wrote them, and I reached the last digit. I waited and waited and waited. Then he says, darn it. I tossed the pen to the table in disgust. Why didn't it happen? Why wasn't there a response? I hoped Kathleen had an answer. Well, I do dowsing. I try to teach dowsing sometimes to people, how to find water, how to communicate with your subconscious mind, all that. And I can tell you that if I have 20 people in a room, and let's say I put 20 envelopes on their desk with different numbers inside, 1 through 10, and I told people to hold it and just close their eyes and think for a minute, what's the number is? 1 or 2 out of the 20 will write the correct number. And then if I set those 2 people aside and give them 5 envelopes and tell them to do the same thing, they'll probably get them all right. Some people have a higher ability without any training for psychic abilities. Some people, like me, I'm probably average or a little lower. I have to practice and practice and practice, and I haven't crossed that threshold yet where I get things all right. And some people, they just don't believe it and they can't get anywhere. So psychic abilities are something that take a lot of time and patience. And some people can enhance their psychic ability in 6 months, a year, 5 years, even 10 years, and 15 years. Some people never. You just never know when your brain, your right and left brain, are going to start cross-talking, communicating with each other, and giving you psychic abilities, but it definitely needs to be something you train yourself. It takes work. And some people, it takes almost no work, and these people are identified by the government, by the way. During the 60s and 70s, they were scanning all the grade schools and high schools for people who exhibited certain types of characteristics that teachers and their family noticed. And they were recruiting these people into these remote viewing and other psychic programs for the government. Plenty of videos on YouTube about this. So again, I point out there's something going on behind the scenes that the rest of us are not aware about, and there's something more to reality than most of us are not aware about. That's why I make these videos, Freemasonry and Satanism, to make it a simple way for people to relax and sit and just watch the videos, get the list of all the videos and set up your own training school, then go check out other books or books you like that I do, watch other people's videos on the topics that I do, and you can self-educate yourself too, without having to go through the hard work I did. I can help you skip a couple steps if you want to find out what's going on. If you don't want to find out what's going on, you want to believe the Democratic Party and the propaganda you get from the liberal progressives, do it. If you want to join the Republican Party and believe in all the propaganda from the conservative Christian sides, do it. But just know the people who control our world are going to be deceiving you, whichever side you're on, the left or the right. They have an agenda, and it's not for your personal growth or protecting and enhancing the quality of life for we the people. Hence, I do these videos. Education. Education. Wake up. All right. So he said, darn it, and he was disgusted. Remember, as I'm reading here, this is his first time. He's going to get better as I move through a couple pages here. It's all right. You'll get it. Just don't panic. Let's take a break and get some fresh air. Write the word break on your paper and put the time down next to it. So even if you watch channeled information, Esther Hicks and other channelers on the YouTube videos or their websites, or go to their schools. And by the way, there are remote viewing schools taught by some of these ex-government employees. Think a couple $1,000s for a week and you can go to remote viewing schools. Apparently they send CEOs of large corporations and other selected people to these remote viewing schools. So not only is the government into this stuff now, but these private corporations, international corporations are. And apparently they're trying to make the switch from local and state and federal governments to having a world controlled by corporations, and the corporations will be owned and controlled by the secret societies, Illuminati, whom I call the Zionist, Communist, Illuminati, Freemasonic people, high-level people, Kabbalah, witchcraft. The people into the occult will be controlling our world and controlling the things that you learn and controlling what you do, what you think, when you live, and maybe when you die, what you eat, how much money you have, how much money you don't have. Next page. Just like to throw in my 2 cents here. I did as I was told. I didn't want a break. I wanted something to happen. Unplugging from the console, I followed Kathleen out of the room and into the sunlight. And I might make a confession here about myself. When I make these videos, this is part of my personal self-education. Because I read this book years ago. I didn't make a video on it then. I wasn't making videos way back then. And then I read it again, preparing for this video. And then I'm making the video talking about this stuff. You don't think I increase my own knowledge base? It helps me. All right. So here he says he's a little disgusted. His first time didn't really work. And I can tell you what that feels like. Okay. I was right where I wanted to be. It should have happened. I should have gotten an ideogram. David, Kathleen said calmly. You can't force the ideogram. You did exactly right. If it doesn't come, you simply declare a miss and ask for the coordinates again. Take a break like we're doing now. It'll happen, trust me. And when I try to show people how to be able to make a pendulum work, using your mind, I know you're going to think my hand is doing it intentionally. My hand will move, but I'm not doing this with my hand. My hand is just staying there, but my mind is going to make my hand move ever so slightly so that I can make the thing turn to the right. I'm doing it with my mind, not my hand muscles intentionally. And if you practice this, you can see for yourself. It startles people when they realize it. And then when I tell it to go back to ready, it goes back to ready. And then I tell it to do a negative, and it goes the opposite way. And usually when I'm teaching somebody and they go, "You're doing it," I hold the thing up like this, and I say, "You will it to turn to the right or the left. I'm holding it. Don't tell me what you're going to do. You just will it. And you change it at your own will." And all of a sudden I'm holding it, and it starts going right, right, right. It stops. It goes the other way, the other way, the other way. And I'm watching their face, and all of a sudden they get contorted. They go, "I can't believe that. I can make it move." It's because somebody else's aura, spiritual body, when it's in close proximity to mine and they're willing things and I let go, they actually control my muscles. Stuff is real. So what is Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, the occult, witchcraft, voodoo, mind control? What can they do to us? Why do they want to microchip us? 5G network, HARP transmitters, heavy metals sprayed in the sky, wireless systems everywhere. You walk around carrying a cell phone, it's pumping out a huge amount of pulses. What can they do? I guess I expected something more overt to happen. Maybe I thought something would grab my hand and drag it across the paper. It doesn't work that way, but you can become possessed, and that's where all those channelers apparently get all their information. And I've gone over quite a number of books on channeling, and we'll be looking at those books and those issues and those conversations again and again. Don't be disappointed. Look, here is what's going on. Your unconscious mind is trying to figure out how to talk to your conscious mind. So your right side of your brain is operating at a super high frequency, and the left side of your brain is operating on a slow frequency. This is the one that sees and talks and moves my arm, my conscious awareness. This is the one that dreams or gets warnings, like let's say you have a family member die and all of a sudden you have this panic attack and you go to your friend you're with, "Man, I feel really bad. Something must have just happened." That would be this brain. Lots of stuff in history talks about ghosts appearing to people who died and all kinds of other stuff. I've gone over those books. We'll be going over more books on those topics. And eventually, you keep watching the videos, you'll start to pick up on a little bit more about reality. The one I made on Carlos Castaneda, A Separate Reality, I made a video on that book. He went to a shama in Mexico and took peyote and learned how to leave his body and see this other reality. Just like they use ayahuasca in Peru, where David Icke went down there and had his first psychic experience. And this is why the Americans and NATO and the governments took over Afghanistan when they were backing off producing opium. Well, opium is back in production, and the cocaine industry. So mind-altering drugs. Remember LSD during the hippie age? The government was behind that. They planned all that. There's all kinds of books, people testifying. Wasn't an accident. These people into these other forces are aware what they're doing. So again, I keep saying it might behoove us to just wake up to a little bit about what this is about. You have to remember that there has been little or no conversation between the two for your entire life. So usually in our normal life, the subconscious mind does not communicate directly with the conscious mind. It's the part of your body that's on automation system. It kind of controls your body, your heart rate, heals your body, dreams. The psychic ability, the psychic side of us, maybe our spiritual self, is busy 24/7, even when we're sleeping. Even when we're awake driving, all of a sudden you slam on the brakes before you even see something, and you just avoid hitting a child or a dog or another car. Your subconscious brain is looking out for you. But it can also be taking over, what they call possession, and demonic possession. You can have multiple personalities. Just stuff to know. All right. She hesitated. Physical life, that is. The two minds need to learn to communicate. That's what training is all about. Now let's get back in there and give it another shot. What do you say? So back in the room, I sat down and adjusted the chair again. Kathleen said, "Now I want you to write resume." Resume. See how the brain works? It was interpreting it before I totally focused on the word. On the paper directly, underneath the word break. So when he writes on paper, he's programming his subconscious brain. So when he took a break, he wrote break, and the subconscious brain got it. When he wrote resume, the subconscious brain got it. Takes a little training. Include the time there as well. Let me know when you're ready. I began counting down again. So he's trying to slow down his heart rate, slow down the frequency of his conscious brain, go back into a trance, self-induced. And I have made some videos on the Edgar Cayce material. Go see that stuff, series 112. There's so much more. Let me know when you're ready. I began counting down again, feeling myself slip deeper and deeper until I reached the altered state again. I noticed that it happened much more quickly this time. That's one of the amazing things also. You start looking into this and learning about it and practicing it, it does get better. I've seen people, when I show them how to use a pendulum, asking questions, yes or no, or the quality of water, the quality of vitamins, the quality of food. Subconscious mind knows all. When my pen touched the paper, Kathleen gave me the coordinates again. My body seemed to move sluggishly, almost in slow motion. As I wrote down the last coordinate, my hand quickly skipped several inches across the paper. I looked up, half dazed, and I asked, "An ideogram?" So he's wondering if he drew something. Kathleen didn't smile. She simply asked, "Is it man-made or natural?" So I tried to focus on her question from somewhere deep inside my mind. Pictures began to push through the darkness, as if someone were flipping a light switch. Briefly, I felt as though I were falling in a bright tunnel. Then the sensation ended abruptly. It came and went over and over, the images always following it. Faint images of a white sparkling substance, brown jagged objects, and a greenish circular star. No, snowflake-like things. The images passed by me as though I were flying and looking down from maybe 3 inches above the surface of something. I felt cold on my face and warmth on my back. Looking up, I thought I briefly saw a brilliant light like the sun, but I returned my attention to the surface. Now I knew the answer. No, it's not man-made. So he has a person sitting there, like Edgar Cayce used to have somebody sitting there asking him questions when he went into trances. Edgar Cayce never remembered any of those things that he did. His translator had written all that down, or his controller. So when he woke up and read what he was transmitting, it was news to him also. Even some of these channelers on TV or on the YouTube videos or lectures you can go to, they say they leave their body when this other entity steps in, and they don't remember anything, but they are off in the ether, in space or elsewhere, experiencing some other kind of reality, which they seem to get used to and like. All right, Kathleen says, what is it, David? It's rising up sharply. It's natural. I was just verbalizing my perceptions of the images passing before me. Definitely natural. Trace the ideogram and describe it to me. Rising up sharply, peaking, dropping sharply, it's natural. My mind assembled the pieces of the puzzle. The white, sparkling, cold substance, snow perhaps? The brown, jagged objects of the green snowflakes? Moss-covered rocks? It's a mountain, I called out, astonished at the revelation. It's a mountain, isn't it? So this is his first time actually doing an ideogram, going to some particular target or picture and seeing it while he's asleep or in a trance. Kathleen made a few notes on her paper without looking up, and then she reached behind her to the target podium and retrieved the folder containing the feedback. So she had a picture inside the folder, and he was supposed to guess what was in there. I'm supposed to make you do your summary before seeing this, but I'm going to violate the protocol just this once. She tossed the envelope across the room to me. I hesitated and then tore open the envelope. A chill ran up my spine as I stared of the picture inside. Mount Fuji. All right, let me continue. I hope you're following me, and I hope you're finding this interesting. And you were just there. How about that? So in his mind, he could see Mount Fuji. Kathleen was grinning from ear to ear now. So I guess he was his first trip using remote viewing. Okay, give me the folder back, and you go write your summary. So after you do remote viewing, you should write a summary so the government trains the spies to do for professional reports. Levi will want to see it before the day is out. You did great. I've never seen anyone get the images you did. That was excellent. So they have to give people feedback, and it helps them increase their abilities. Kathleen left the building and headed for the office. But I sat in the room for a long time thinking. Finally, shaking my head, I muttered to myself, it's got to be just luck. So a lot of people have a hard time believing that this is all real. How could it be anything else? No such thing as luck in this business. I'd forgotten Mel was in the monitor room, so he's muttering to himself it's just luck, and Mel is in the monitoring room and can hear him speaking. Don't forget, someone's always listening, so keep your comments to yourself. Hey, great session. I'll see you in the office. And he was gone just like that. Never pick your nose in here, I told myself. So somebody's always watching you when you're in the CVR room, control remote viewing. I felt that as if a moment ago the world had opened its darkest secret to me. As I stood alone in the room, I stared at the ideogram and remembered the sensation I felt. Page 110. Bill Levy was right. My life would never be the same. So David Morehouse wrote this book from his experiences. If you're really interested, go buy the book. You just want to get some believability in your own mind, you can listen to this video. You can go on the internet, YouTube, alternate websites, and watch other videos, read other papers and documents. But if the powers that be have capabilities that we don't know about, and they could use those capabilities to our detriment, don't you want to know? Shouldn't we know? They know, and they're using those technologies against us. And it's pretty powerful technology. If you get really good at it, you could leave your body, enter somebody else's body, pull out a gun out of your holster, shoot somebody, leave that person's body, and guess who gets stuck with the blame for shooting? The person who was taken over. Can they do that? That's the question. Are they doing that? All right. I hadn't completely escaped Mel's lectures. I found myself in a mix of classroom and viewing room over the next 3 weeks. It seemed Levi was experimenting on me, trying new protocols and combinations of procedures to see if he could expedite the training process. It was July 1988. I'd been in training for almost 6 months now, with about 25 CRV sessions, leaving his body under remote viewing, under my belt. Kathleen and Mel were excellent viewers, and their skill rubbed off. I was getting better all the time. There was still a great deal I didn't understand. So far, I hadn't been expected to converse with the monitors, and I was not able to move in the target area. Many of the lectures concerned these issues. I had a few more nightmares, but nothing as hideous as the one involving the family, and I was feeling pretty sure of myself at this point. Yeah, I still had my doubts about how and why this stuff worked, but one thing was certain. Work it did. Okay, moving on. You going to be ready in 10 or 15 minutes? Mel asked. David said, I forgot to check the board. What time am I supposed to be viewing? You're on for 0900 hours. I'll monitor and Kathleen will take the monitor room. Did you happen to notice the target designator on the board? Oh, that's right. You didn't bother to look, did you? Just a little chit-chat between trainer and remote viewer. I ran for the board, and there it was, a big blue 0 staring me right in the face. All right, David said. Operational. The real thing. So apparently now they're going to send him on a real mission. Mel smiled. I knew that, but you didn't. Next time, make sure you check the board. See you over there in a quarter for a hookup and a prep. In the viewing room, Mel set up the target folder and slid me a sheet of paper. I adjusted my chair, dimmed the light, and began. Off the biofeedback monitor now, so he didn't need to use a feedback monitor. He was getting better at putting himself in a trance. Somehow, Edgar Casey just learned how to do this naturally, and he would just close his eyes and lay on a sofa and start to relax like he was going to sleep. In the meantime, with his mind, he would look for a bright light And when he saw the bright light appear, he would go towards it into the bright light, the tunnel. And he would have somebody managing him sitting in a chair, a secretary or somebody, who would be controlling him, telling him what to do when he went in a trance, and taking notes or recording the incident. I had to get to the desired brainwave frequencies on my own. It didn't take long these days, a few minutes. I was ready. I picked up the pen and my eyes closed. My head dropped as I fell deep into an altered state. "When you're ready, Dave," Mel said. As soon as my pen touched the paper, he read the coordinates. 0143111113211. So he's giving him some coordinates. My hand jumped across the paper, leaving an ideogram behind. And I guess his handler says, "Decode it." I turned my head, cracking my neck, as I put the pen back on the ideogram. I methodically probe it, slipping deeper and deeper into the ether. So he's trying to think about what he just made an ideogram of. Time had nearly stopped. I felt myself rising into darkness, away from the table and the room. Up, up. I tried to gain some sense of what and where I was. There was a rushing sound in my ears, like a cold wind passing. I felt blind, lost, helpless, and cold. Pinholes of light came into focus, like stars in a black fog. He's thinking to himself now, "Am I in space? I've got to get to the target. I can't miss the target." So when you are in a trance or you're out of your body, you've got to keep your wits about you. And sometimes the environment can take control of you. The stars suddenly blurred into horizontal streaks of light. I felt myself accelerating, faster and faster, falling toward the target as if through a tunnel of light. So we hear about a tunnel of light a lot of times when people have out-of-body experiences or after-death or near-death experiences. My speed began to create heat around me, and I closed my eyes and fist, expecting to burn, but I didn't. So he's moving so fast that the friction makes him think that he's getting hot. I didn't look in the direction of my descent, and there, looming at the end of the tunnel, was a moving field of dark blue mist. I struck it full force and punched through it into something else. The air was warmer now, and I felt more in control. Without warning, a voice invaded my sanctuary. "David!" And it was Riley, so his handler was talking to him. At first I choked, trying to find a way to speak with this phantom-like body. And then it came, as if I'd been doing it all my life. "Mel!" So he's talking in this trance, or he's somewhere, his spirit is someplace else, and his spirit is talking, but it travels all the way back to his body, and his body actually talks. "Mel, this is very strange." "Darn, did you hear that? I talked." So he's even amazed he can talk. "I know it's strange, Dave, but you're doing fine. Try to stabilize yourself and tell me what you see." Stabilize myself? What am I supposed to do? Hang on to something? So, you're a ghost type of being out there in the ether. It's not like you're flesh and blood and you can pick up something. Warm air rushed around me. A white haze crept in, blocking my vision. "Just relax, Dave. Get a sense of where you are. Let yourself find the target. Just think about the target." My friend was doing his best to guide me and help me keep control. "This is unbelievable, Mel," Kathleen said over the intercom. Wow. It's like watching a Stargate movie, reading this stuff, thinking. He's biolocated within seconds of receiving the coordinates. Nobody's ever done it that fast before. Mel replied, let's hope it's just beginner's luck. It isn't just beginner's luck. He's floundering around out there, trying to figure out how everything works. But I think I can get him on target fairly soon. He turned his attention back to me. What do you see, Dave? The haze is going away. I've got all kinds of visuals coming in. I think I'm outside some kind of building. Describe it to me. I was struggling to remain stable, but I kept moving involuntarily around what I thought was the target. It's still hard to see. There's a lot of stuff coming and going out here. It's kind of confusing. So this is his first time out. I suspect that's probably how it is. Even when shamans were training Carlos Castaneda in my video on the book, The Separate Reality, he had to go through a lot of training to actually get to go do the things he was taught. And the shaman did tell Carlos Castaneda that it's dangerous business. There are entities out there and things out there, like you wouldn't run across an interstate with a lot of speeding traffic, would you? Because you'd get run over. Well, apparently, flying through the ether, there are things like that that exist out there. That could gobble up your soul and your spirit, destroy you, consume you. I've gone over books on this stuff. We'll be looking at it again. I'm just trying to tell people who watch my videos in the series Freemasonry and Satanism, there's more to reality than we know, and it might behoove us to look into it, to be aware of it. All right. I think I'm outside some kind of building. Describe it to me. I was struggling to remain stable, but I kept moving involuntarily around what I thought was the target. It's still hard to see. There's a lot of stuff coming and going out here. It's kind of confusing. That's just visual noise. Pay no attention to it. Just focus on the target. I think I see it. It looks like an older building. Made of stone, maybe. Yeah, stone. I can see windows and wait a minute. And the handler says, what? I laughed. I still can't get the hang of this. 1 second I'm standing still, and the next I'm 2 inches off the ground, staring at the sidewalk. So he's still kind of being amazed that he's outside of his body. I suppose I would be too. You'll get the hang of it. Just concentrate on righting yourself and getting back to the mission. It's like a conversation you might have in a Harry Potter movie. Except apparently David Morehouse worked for the government. When he got out, he wrote this book, and a lot of the remote viewers wanted to get away from government work once they found out what they were into. And I've been going over those people, remote viewers, and their books. I plan to investigate this field of research thoroughly and share it in my videos, along with a lot of other interesting material, as I've been doing. Riley and I worked until, by focusing my thoughts into visual patterns, I could control my movements in this phantom state. If I wanted to stand, I visualized myself standing. Similarly, if I wanted to move left or right, I pictured myself turning that way. It's called projection. So when you're out of your body, if your brain wants to do something, you just tell your brain to do it. Mel, I got it. This is like a platform diver visualizing the dive before it's executed. He basically moves from place to place visually. You ever done a back flip or a double flip? I used to do back 360s all the time. You got to visualize it and feel it. When you leave the ground, you're totally in emotion. All right, exactly. There is no other way for us to teach it to you than for you to experience it like this. Fascinating, experimenting. I shot straight up in the air till I was about 100 feet above the building. I'm above the building now. How do I get in? Sounds like Superman learning how to fly. The same way you did everything else. Do I use the door or what? So he's having a conversation back with his handler and him. No, just punch through the roof and describe the interior of the building to me. I stared at the rooftop and concentrated briefly, my phantom body hurling itself down. I flinched as the roof passed by, but it felt like nothing more than a soft puff of air, like a mild aftershock or blast concussion. And if you read any books on abductions, like Whitley Strieber's book, and what books do I have of his? Transformation, Communion, and another one called The Greys. I've made a video on his book. But anyways, in his book and other books on alien abductions or interaction with gray aliens, etc., they appear to walk right through the wall. You see what I'm saying about learning stuff? Why I begin to think that there's more to these alien beings. It's seemingly more involved into the another dimension. Makes a lot of the stuff in the Bible and other ancient texts and hieroglyphics more believable. Makes us understand reality better. And that's the whole idea, is we the people need to wake up. And if we understand reality and we understand who we are and what we can do, these people who are trying to control us with microchips, chips and frequencies and programming won't be able to control us. And the people who are behind the New Age and the New World Order are aware that about 15% of us are not under some kind of mind control. That means 85% are in a zombie-like state, and half of them think that they're Democrats and the Republicans are evil, and the other half are Republicans and think the Democrats are evil, and that's all by design. Just my conclusion after researching and reading books, watching videos, magazines, press releases, and all this studying for going on 13 years and making videos for 4 years. I've got about 500 hours of videos on YouTube. And that's what I think is going on, just like with the recent White Lives Matter in Virginia parades or protests, demonstrations, whatever you want to call it, and also in Alabama. And then to counter that was the Antifa, the anti-fascists, who apparently recently broke into a courthouse in one of the states and burned the state flag and hung up the Antifada flag. So they're pulling out the left liberal progressives for demonstrations and attacks on buildings, and they're pulling out the right conservative Christians. They're not all Christians. I don't think they're Christian at all. And doing their white supremacy, Ku Klux Klan things. They're doing all this for public consumptions, if you want my opinion. And again, once people wake up to this stuff, even this stuff here in this book, once we become aware of our reality, we can become aware of what they're doing to us. They don't want people to know the things that I talk about. Be sure of that. It's like President John Kennedy said, when he said secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life. And I'm going to expose it. And then he was assassinated. And if you join these secret societies like the Freemasons, you swear on a Bible under threat of having your throat cut, and worse, if you disclose the secrets. They want to keep this stuff secret. Alright, so inside the building, I found a puzzling scene. I see a lot of junk. My emotions began to clash with what I was sensing. Mel. Yeah, Dave. I'm a little confused again. I can describe the room for you, but I'm getting something deeper, something emotional. Tell me about the building first, and then we'll move on to the other aspects. I slowly turned a full circle in the center of the room. I see wooden floors, cases, boxers covered in glass. I think these are weapons. Here. Yes, that's it. I'm surrounded by weapons. So he's describing what he sees in a trance, and he's remote viewing. Where did they send him? Riley smiled and kept jotting notes. There are smaller rooms off this one. So Dave is reporting there are smaller rooms here. This appears to be the center room in the building. There's a lot of wood and metal objects. Mixed construction, not separate. His handler says, explain that. I mean the objects are both made of wood and metal. Are these the large objects you would describe earlier, the ones with the glass on top? Or are they related to those objects in any way? Dave says, I struggled to answer. They're related. So he's trying to perceive what he's seeing on this spot where he was sent. One goes inside the other, but I can't understand how or why. What else can you tell me about the site? Well, there's an emotional thing. So Dave said that this particular site is causing him some emotional issues. Okay, let's explore that, his handler says. What's so strong that it keeps punching through to you on an emotional level? I closed my eyes and tried to absorb the unseen aspects of the site. The images and emotions came in a trickle at first, and then suddenly flooded me. That hurts. And his handler said, hurts? Well, no, it doesn't hurt. I guess it's making me sick to my stomach more than anything. Tell me what you sensed, Dave. My phantom body dropped to its knees, while my physical body uncontrollably slumped onto the table. This place is fraught with death, I sobbed. Everything in here smells and tastes of death. Touch one of the objects and tell me what you feel and see inside yourself. I reached for the object near me. I could see a man walking. He is filthy, covered in smoke and blood. He smells like an animal. His hair is long, and so is his beard. He's moving in a line with a lot of other men just like him. I paused. He's a soldier. So he sees a lot of old, dirty men, filthy, in a line walking. What kind of soldier? His handler asked. I don't know, but I think he's old. His time is gone. He's gone. Gone away. I'm seeing something past, aren't I? So he's seeing something past. Out there in the invisible reality, in the ether, it can get very strange. All right, back to the video. Just grabbed a couple books to look at for a second. So I've been making videos on this book, Edgar Cayce's Story of Jesus. Probably have 3 or 4 2-hour videos. Series number 112, when he went into a trance. Apparently he went into the Akashic Records, some kind of hall of records in the ether world. another dimension. So they record everything about our lives in this dimension in some kind of a hall of records called the Akashic Records. It's in a lot of the occult material. This is the other book I made a video on, a couple 2-hour videos, series number 93. You see that on the top there. About Carlos Castienda spending a lot of time in Mexico with some shamans, learning how to go into this other world. Look at the picture. Quite interesting. And of course, Barbara Marciniak channeling the Palladian entities. Who are these Palladian entities? Some of the clues I got in the channeling information is that these beings are also the biblical Palladians are the Watchers or Reptilians. Some of the channeled information indicates they might be the Anunnaki beings, Archons. So who are they communicating in this other reality and relaying information back to we the people on earth? Why are they trying to destroy Christianity, discredit Jesus, and the other religions too, and bring us this new age and new world order, and prophesizing some kind of antichrist being coming from the other world? This is another one by Bringers of the Dawn, Teachings from the Palladians. I made videos on this stuff, series 60. I made video on this book, series number 40, The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. So this meditation, yoga, New Age, occult, involving satanic sex, orgies, according to Aleister Crowley. Apparently it opens up to portals to demonic beings. This is nothing new. Jim Mars recently passed away. I've been making some videos on his books. This is series 29. The other one is series 144, Jim Mars on the Terra Conspiracy 911. Why did they do 911? And 144 part 1, Jim Mars on President John Kennedy's assassination. Why did they have him assassinated? And I believe all these topics I discuss are related. Here's another person you can go online and see videos or listen to videos with Tim Rifat being interviewed. I believe on the Rents program, Jeff Rents. He's usually a regular weekly guest. And I've got several of his books. Tim Rifat, remote viewer, used to work for the government. Big, thick books. I couldn't buy this one. It was banned, I suppose, in the United States. I had to order it from Britain. So I was told. So back to the book. And that's only a few books I have, as you've already seen these other books when I started this video. I've gone through great lengths on many different topics. These are the up to 149 series, and some of those series have 2 and 3 and 4 books like David Icke's books, or 4 books for Henry Macau, The Jewish Problem, that are on this shelf. So to get to 150 in my series, which will be the review number, Freemasonry and Satanism series number 150, I'll be going over the 4-year review that it took me to make videos on all these books. There's over 300 on YouTube, my account, and 500 hours because many of my videos are 2 hours. So for the series 150, I plan on going over all these books, a short little synopsis to celebrate the anniversary of completing 4 years of research. So there's about 200 books on that shelf. Not forgetting the Encyclopedia of Judaica, that complete set that would fill up one whole shelf here of 16 books. So definitely 200 books. I just think, you got the Freemasons. We see the lodge downtown, the fraternity, People join to get business contacts or socializing. But some people get raised up and they learn the true cult, who the real deity of the Freemasons is. And they say, Albert Pike, it's Lucifer. And the deity in the Theophist Society with Helena Blavatsky is Lucifer. So what is the satanic world we're dealing in? Why did they want to put the archway of Baal, the devil, in Britain, London, and New York City? And later on I found out through UNESCO they wanted to put up 1,000 of these archways to Baal, some kind of portal to enter this other world or let beings come into this world using some kind of portal magic. Is that a good thing? Should we be concerned? And they say that's what CERN is all about. They turn on that collider and it seemed to open up some kind of portal where they could see beings. Can beings come through that portal? Would that be a good thing? What's that have to do with the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics? Planet X, Nibiru, the Anunnaki, Zechariah Stitchins, and so much more. All right, back to the book. Riley sat back in his chair and took a deep breath. Okay, Dave, I want you to come back. Let everything go now and come back. I began to breathe rapidly. Small beads of sweat formed on my forehead and arms. My muscles twitched and jerked involuntarily as my phantom body fell through the tunnel of light again. So on his way back, he's going through a tunnel of light again. So after reading this for the last couple days, I was sort of dreaming last night, and I had one of those aha moments. And I said, wow, when you do go places from one place to another in the other interdimensional travel, whatever, even in this dimension, from one place to another, apparently it's a vortex. It's a tunnel of light. Just like you see on the time tunnel TV programs and stuff like that. Remember that old TV series? Anyways, I could see Mel through eyes I couldn't control. So not only can he be and see something else, but he can instantaneously see through his eyes in the remote viewing room, and he can see Mel looking at him, but he's not quite back in his body yet. It was frightening, like a horrible nightmare I'd had months ago, to look at Mel through someone else's eyes. But in a few minutes, I was able to raise my head and focus my eyes. As my vision cleared, I saw Mel sitting in front of me and smiling. And Mel asked, "Had fun, did you?" I rubbed my eyes and wiped my face on my shirt sleeve. Oh, great fun. Where was I anyways? Why did I feel like I was looking through another set of eyes? That's for you to tell me. I want you to go into the garden room and do your summary for me. Kathleen and I'll be there in about 20 minutes, okay? So apparently after a remote viewing session, you need to go into a room and write a summary. Then they can have a meeting and discuss it. Protocol. I nodded, but I stood up and started to sway. I had to grab the table for support. So he got up to leave, and he was a little dizzy, ready to fall down. Mel says, "You'll be all right in a minute or two. That was your first real biolocation. They tend to take a bit out of you at first. Actually, they always take a bit out of you." 20 minutes in the garden room, Riley walked out of the room. Okay, I felt awful, as if I'd had a hangover or maybe the flu. My legs wobbled and my stomach was queasy. I could hear Kathleen and Riley congratulating one another in the monitor's room down the hall, but I couldn't quite make out what they were saying. In the garden room, Kathleen and Mel sat on opposite sides of the table, and looked intently at me. I had the urge to say, I didn't do it, whatever it was. So give us your perceptions, said Riley. I gave my notes and sketches a quick glance and began reading. The site had aspects of both old and new. It's a stone building that houses many objects. These objects, they're definitely weapons of some sort, have a military value. Most of them are made of wood and metal. There is a great deal of glass in the building, plus wooden floors, carpets, old furniture, and so on. The site has an almost domestic appearance. What about the man you saw? Riley asked. I'm getting to him. There are paintings and posters on the wall, all reflecting combat of some sort. Heroes, villains, and victims are represented. The man I accessed was a soldier. I'd say was because I got the distinct sense that he was dead. What gave you that perception? Said Riley. I don't know. It's just the way I felt when I looked at him. He was grubby looking, wet and dirty. I could even smell him. But there wasn't any heat, any soul. It was like looking at a movie. All the physical attributes of emotion are there, but when you look inside, there's nothing. Well, isn't that interesting? What is this reality we live in? It was just an empty frame. I set my notes on the table and looked at Riley and Kathleen. Okay, so where's my feedback? So after a remote viewing adventure, the people controlling you are supposed to tell you where you were, and that confirmation of what you saw makes you believe it more, which increases your ability to remote view. Isn't that interesting? It's about belief. I remember reading the Bible. I made videos on Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John. And the disciples who Jesus was teaching would complain that they couldn't perform miracles like he did. And he said, "O ye of such little faith." He said, later on you will do greater things than I. So faith is something to do with believability. And the more you believe, the more you can do miracles. Now think about the occult, mysticism, the Kabbalah, the evil forces controlling humanity, living like wealthy elites and into decadence, perversion, theft, and murder, causing wars. What do they know? What do they believe? If they don't want us to pray, what are they afraid of? If you've been watching my videos, they perform satanic rituals and they pray. Even the Jewish people at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, or even at the bus stations, the videos and pictures I've shown, they're going like this, doing some kind of prayer over and over, an incantation. They believe in what they're doing. What are they doing? But they don't want you to pray. They don't want you to believe in God, whatever religion you are. Just saying, this other reality does exist. And it might behoove us, we the people, all of us, from China to California, Eskimos, Mayans, Peruvians, we all need to wake up. These few people who control our planet can't win if we wake up. We won't have another World War III and millions and maybe billions dead. It's that important to wake up. Back to the book. Sorry about my rambling on, but I get emotional when I think about the people who are trying to destroy our planet. Bringing us the White Lives Matter, white supremacist KKK, and then the Antifada, anti-fascists on the Democratic side, and marching down there in Mexico, don't build a wall, and so much more. Both sides have all these people under their control. and they're bringing them out so they can keep us all divided. It's what they do for revolutions, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, World War I, World War II, 9/11. We all had to believe it was some Arabs so they could go over there and bomb to smithereens all those towns, all those cities, machine gunning the citizens. What is their religion over there? Why do those people stand at the Wailing Wall and get all of our politicians to go there too? Might be some interesting answers if people were to get them. All right, so Riley pulled the target folder from his stack of papers and slid it across the room. I snatched it and hurriedly opened the folder. A museum? I was devastated, David said. You sent me to the Civil War Museum? I thought you were giving me an operational target. So he was upset. He wanted to do a real operational job. I threw the folder back on the table, and I was disgusted. A museum. Calm down, Riley said. We had to be sure you could handle something simple before we gave you anything difficult. So why the heck don't you tell me that, instead of letting me believe I was ready to go operational? 3 more pages here. Kathleen answered me. We wanted to see if thinking you were going operational would pose a problem for you. I'm sorry for the deception, but we had to know. As angry as I was, I had to agree. I understand. It's just a bit unsettling not knowing when you're pulling a fast one on me. It had to be done. I'm sorry, said Mel. Okay, where to next? Before you go anywhere, I want you to look at that target folder again, Mel answered. Don't blow off good feedback just because the target wasn't what you expected. He tossed the folder back on my lap. Open it and let's see how good or bad you were. I opened the folder again and carefully analyzed it under the watchful eye of my mentors. Pretty interesting, he's thinking. Isn't it, said Riley. Don't you realize that you were in the target area seconds after taking the coordinates? And if that's not enough for you, take a look at your findings. A building, you said. Well, this museum certainly looks like a building to me. With aspects of old and new, you said. Kathleen, does a museum have old things in it as well as new ones? Yep, she grinned. All right, I get the message, said Dave. Look, Dave, Riley said, you were on target almost instantly. You collected information that would have cracked the target wide open had this been an operational mission. You saw weapons where there were weapons. You accessed a Union soldier that's been dead over 100 years. You've captured every critical aspect of the target. So what's your complaint? Dave says, I was embarrassed. I apologize. I deserve whatever you guys hand out. Riley chirped. I'd say you deserved a break today. My treat. All right, moving on. After lunch, Riley promised to send me on a real operational target. I took my position in the chair and hooked up to the control panel to begin the cool down process. Slow down his frequency. I emptied my mind and slowed my pulse to about 32 beats per minute. This time, without prompting from Riley, I picked up the pen, ready to receive the coordinates. I called them out as I wrote them, and as I recorded the final digit, my right hand lurched, forming a quick, roughly circular ideogram. Good, now decode it, came Riley's comforting voice. So you see what the procedure is? He gives them a number, and that number transmits a coordinate, which in his mind pops an ideogram. Then he's supposed to mentally tell himself to decode it. I touched the ideogram with the pen. My physical body slumped in the chair, so now he goes into a trance. And I separated again. So even with Carlos Castaneda, the book I just showed you, called A Separate Reality, when those shamas, those Mexican shamas, witch doctors if you want to call them that, when they take that peyote, they go into a different altered state, and they find themselves outside of their body. I found myself spread eagle spinning into the stars. Wow. This time I felt better about what had happened. As I was righting myself, the lights of the stars blurred into horizontal streaks. So you've seen a film where they aimed it at the sky and left the lens open for a little while. All the stars look like long streaks. I felt charged with electricity. My skin crawled and tingled, and my phantom body grew cold as ice. So that's interesting when you're out there in your spirit body. You can feel heat or ice, or so you think you can. I could feel my limbs, and my inclination was to rub them to get some life and warmth back into them. But there was nothing physical to rub. I felt myself rising higher and higher, and I closed my eyes to absorb the sensation. Wow, that would be a trip. Suddenly, I stopped moving upward. I felt myself casually turning to the left as though I were doing a cartwheel, and then I began plummeting down the tunnel of light. I accelerated toward the target faster and faster. The silence of the ether grew to a huge roar. So when you're moving fast with your spiritual body through the ether, apparently you can hear a loud noise. As if I had stuck my head outside a jet in flight. Like sticking your head outside your car window going 80 miles an hour. I tried to cover my ears, but I was still unable to manage my limbs. When I finally opened my eyes, so you're in your spiritual body and you have eyes that you open? That's interesting. I saw myself falling toward the strange light again, and I braced for the impact. I felt the light puff of air sensation, followed by the immediate silence. I was there. I can't move. I can't move. It's like I'm stuck in molasses. I cried. The sensation was stifling. I was being held in position by something I couldn't see. So we already saw that book I showed you, where I talked about psychic defense and all these other books. When you move, there's lots of warnings that when you go into these states or leave your body or get into the occult, magic or witchcraft, use a Ouija board even, you can find yourself in some troubling positions. Apparently some girls in Ohio, 3 or 4 of them were using a Ouija board, and they actually became possessed by demonic beings and had to be taken away in straitjackets. So I suppose somebody needs to do some research before they start getting into this stuff. It might be a bit dangerous. Dave, calm down. Describe what you see. Do you know where you are? I began coughing and choking and flailing my arms about. I threw my head back, gasping for air and freedom. I felt as if I were fighting for my life. The pen fell from my hand. So his physical body is slumped over, and now the pen falls out of his hand, but wherever his spiritual body is, he feels like he's trapped somewhere. David, get some height. Raise yourself above the target. David, raise yourself. Remember, you got to project yourself. I could hear Mel shouting, and I struggled to comply. Gasping for air, coughing, I pitched backward in the viewing chair and sucked in a long, rasping breath, like a diver who's made an emergency ascent. I was filled with fear. My hands were balled into fists, and I was wringing wet. I tried to regain my composure. What happened? Remember, I've done a lot of videos on these topics, these books I showed you. So go to my website, rickmiracle.com, and print out the list of my videos. 149 in the series on different topics. Might be a shortcut to learning some of this stuff. I do a lot of research into psychic experiments and activities and occult descriptions. It's hard to get any really good information. You really have to do a lot of work. All right, to page 118, and to wrap up this video, a little less than 20 minutes. Not too much left to go. I've got this one column here that I've highlighted, and then a couple pictures to look at. So here I go. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. I think Mel knew what had happened. But first he had to stabilize me and get me to describe what I was seeing. So they had sort of an emergency. Dave was stuck in something like a molasses. He was gasping, trying to breathe. What happened? Dave, I need you to tell me what you see. You need to get control. Shake it off. Get back to the mission. So Dave is in the laboratory, sitting in a chair in a trance, but his spirit is having some problems. I sense the confidence in his firm tone. I gathered myself and tried to focus on the target. In what seemed only a few minutes, I was calm enough to begin talking again. Oh, I swallowed hard. I see a glassy surface below me. Glassy, as in flat and smooth? Riley asked. So he's regaining his composure. Remember, he's just learning how to do this. No, it's smooth and flat, but there's some texture to the surface. Riley asked, how big is it? I turned in a slow circle above the plane. It reaches as far as I can see in every direction, but it's hard to tell because there's a fog or a mist blocking my view. About how far can you see? And remember, David is a soldier. Was a soldier. He got wounded. David Morehouse. Oh, I guess about 2, maybe 300 meters. Smell the air, Dave. Tell me what you smell. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. It smells like the sea, just like the sea. So isn't that interesting? With his spiritual body on assignment, way out there somewhere, his physical body takes a breath and smells the sea. Riley sounded relieved. Let's get back to the mission. What you're seeing is not the target. You need to find the target. I closed my eyes and listened for anything, any perception that might lead to the target. Somewhere off in the haze, I felt a vibration. Its pitch stayed constant, reverberating in my head. I felt a vibration. I think I can find the source. Good, move there now, his handler said. The vibration grew louder and more intense with each passing second. I stopped for a moment to get a better bearing, hovering a few feet above the glassy surface and listening. The sound and vibration increased. I turned from side to side, my eyes still closed, straining to get a bearing on the source. The vibration rapidly grew, so intense that it shook my entire body. Now remember, I'm only reading a couple pages. I want to do an audiobook. Go buy the book. Give credit where credit is due here. I'm just trying to get people to wake up to what reality is all about. And the people wouldn't know about the book if they didn't find out about it maybe on a video like mine, without going through a ton of research that takes years. I'm trying to help people take a shortcut to learn what I have learned. And if we all wake up, the evil forces trying to bring us this new age, new world order, and destroy the world as we know it, maybe they won't succeed. In any event, the pursuit of knowledge can't be bad, and it would probably be good for your soul growth when you do leave planet Earth and die to have been involved in an attempt to learn and do something, versus somebody willing to remain ignorant and apathetic and don't care. What do you think? Do you think we're responsible for our actions as human beings? You think we were put here for nothing? Maybe that's part of the whole thing why we're here on earth. To see how we'll behave, to see if we care, to see if we're apathetic, to see if we're stupid, to see if we're smart. What would you do if you were God and you had created humans and spirits? I guess you just couldn't let everybody run around in the galaxy. You have to have some kind of school for them. So even like Edgar Cayce and other people, they say this life is like a school. All right, some people call it a prison planet. The sound grew to a roar, and I opened my eyes to see a dark mountain of steel coming at me. It hit me head on. I winched, but my phantom body passed through the steel. So some big steel thing was coming at him. It went right through him. Reeling but uninjured, I hurled myself at the object trying to catch it. In a few seconds, I was matching its speed, flying 100 or so feet above it. It was obscured by the haze, so I moved in for a closer look. I'll just show you some of the pictures here. Apparently here is David when he graduated from got promoted to the rank of second lieutenant. His father and his wife are there. Here is David parachuting. Not showing you all the pictures. Here's him as he took command of his second company. So now he's a 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. And apparently he got wounded. He had a dream about an angel carrying him. In a dream, the angel carries me, a torn and broken man, towards a place of rest and healing. I guess that was after he got shot in the military on duty. All right, so let's read a little more. I may not be able to get through the entire chapter, but I think you're getting the gist of the story. So now he's on this mission. He's flying high above this big metal thing that's moving, that ran right into him and went through him. And he's trying to figure it out what it is because he's sent on a mission. I see a large metal object moving quickly across the glassy surface. And his handler says, "Tell me about it." It has an odd shape, angular at one end and rounded on the other. The rounded end is the front, or at least that's the direction it's moving in. The object is covered in boxes, tubes, and the like. Let's see, it's got two major features that I can see. What are they? Riley asked. There is a large glass-covered box in the center of the object, toward the rounded end. I think it has some control feature. On the square end, there are 2, 3 cylinders about 5 or 6 yards long. There is some sort of force coming from them, but I can't make it out. So he's out there on this mission. Apparently it's dark out, foggy out. He can barely see, and he's following this big metal thing. I mean, I can't see what it is. It's invisible to me. Can you tell me how fast the object's moving? I can't tell. I don't know how to gauge it. Guess. I guess about 40 or maybe 50 miles per hour. Okay, I want you to come back now, break contact, and come home. On my way, he says. It took several minutes to get back. This time the effects of the session were less severe, though I felt weak and had trouble focusing, as if I were still attached to the target in some way. I kept crossing the threshold, passing in and out of the ether without any control over the process. So when I read that, I thought about the Philadelphia experiment, where they put all those electromagnetic transmitters all over the ship. The government, during the war, was trying to make the ship invisible to radar, but they had an unexpected surprise. The ship actually left where it was and went elsewhere on the earth, apparently to historic places where it had been. It time traveled, and when it came back, some of the men were inside and outside the bulkhead. Their bodies, the steel was right through the middle of their bodies. And some of the people, what I just read here, did not have the steel through their body, and they were okay, but they kept shifting in and out of this reality and the other reality. Just a common denominator. And I made a video on that book. That would have been 78, I think. Around that number on my list. Philadelphia Experiment, Freemasonry and Satanism book review. Look it up and it should pop up. If not, go to my website, rickmiracle.com. Left hand side, look at the list, cut and paste it, print out your own copy, then you'll have it. Save yourself a lot of time, and you have some books you can order and read them, the kind of topics you're interested in. Alright, after a while the symptoms passed, so he had a problem going in and out his mind to get back into the material dimension, the material world. But I was to experience it after every viewing session. So this was something that happens quite often when you go in and out of these trances and leave your body. I learned that if viewers worked more than twice in a day, we had to be driven home. We weren't fit to drive ourselves. The chance that we would slip back into the ether was too great. So I guess you could just slip into the ether and your body would be driving the car but wouldn't be seeing anything. That would be scary. Riley went into the monitor's room to talk with Kathleen, returning to the viewer room just as I was getting coherent. Stay in here and work on your summary. As soon as you're ready, come into the garden room. Kathy and I will be waiting there. Okay? Sure. And he said, you're doing all right. I feel a bit weak, that's all. I'll be okay in a minute or two. Riley left the room and met Kathleen in the hall. I could hear them talking. So, what did you think? Asked Riley. And she says he's fast, first of all. But that's not where it stops. He's accurate as well. The two walked into the viewing room, and I was just standing up from the table. Go ahead and get started on your summary, Riley asked. You can use the garden room, and we'll join you in a few minutes. Wait a darn minute. You guys are walking around here talking about me like I wasn't even in the building. Well, I am. And if you're going to talk about me, have the decency to include me. Now, what did I do wrong? Just a little personal chit-chat here in his story. Okay, Riley said, you didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted Kathleen to see what you left us on the table here. Look on the table there in front of Dave. He pointed to several small pools of liquid on the table. I'd coughed them up when I was choking earlier in the session. So remember when he was in like molasses and he couldn't breathe and he was gasping for air in his spiritual body, his phantom body? His real body was coughing and spitting up fluid. What is it? Kathleen asked, keeping her hands in her pockets but bending to get a closer look. Riley looked at me. Where do you think you landed us at first? So Riley said, where do you think you wound up first? And that's where he was gasping and choking and thinking he was in some kind of molasses. Don't think about it too much. Just call it. Tell us what it was like. Well, I couldn't breathe. There was a lot of pressure, and the environment around me was thick and restrictive. When you told me to move upward out of it, I did, and I could breathe and move. Yeah, but it wasn't that simple, was it? You coughed and choked on the thick stuff. You couldn't breathe for a reason. What was it? I looked at Kathleen, and she stared at me blankly. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. So they're all trying to figure out where he was. So Riley says, you landed underwater, and you started choking. You were spitting this stuff out like a drowning man. It was unbelievable. That's ridiculous. I really wasn't in the water. No, you really weren't in the water, but your physical body will manifest certain reactions to what your phantom body is experiencing in the target area. That's part of biolocation, and you're catching on to it very quickly, which is great. But the downside is you don't have enough experience to understand it, react to it, and deal with it quickly, and that can be dangerous. So with that said, reading just a couple pages from this book, which I believe is true, when we talk about mysticism, Jewish mysticism, we talk about secret societies, we talk about occult theocracy, the Theophist Society, a physicist, Jacques Vallée, Messengers of Deception, Freemasonry, studying the occult with apparently some satanic Luciferic deity, pictures of the devil. What kind of entities and magic and witchcraft are we talking about? Sacrificing humans into pedophilia, spirit cooking, all kinds of satanic rituals during events on TV, symbols being placed around the country, archways, statues of devils. Even in many of our downtown areas, we have gargoyles up on the buildings. Channeled material. I've been going over different books on those topics. We'll continue doing that. Major trends in Jewish mysticism. What are they into? What should we know? Or should we remain ignorant? The Illuminati? Apparently some kind of Luciferic satanic forces interacting with humans. They're illuminated. They're initiated. What's it mean? Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Reporting.